Welcome to the Framework Podcast. This is John Bernhard, and with me, as always, my co-host, Al Schwartz.
That's me.
And we are talking about Panic Room, the fifth David Fincher film. And joining us, returning to the program, gadfly, raconteur, man about town, Joon Kim.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back.
I
don't know if any of that describes me, but I'll take it.
We're still in like the pandemic semi-lockdown thing where like man about town is actually kind of like a loaded charge to be tossing at people.
Actually, because of the pandemic, because I work at my family's convenience store, so my sense of risk about COVID is different from somebody who can stay home all day. So I've gone out and eaten. I've gone out and seen movies when they're available and stuff like that. So I guess in COVID's case, I am sinfully a man about town.
We're not here to talk about the pandemic. We're here to talk about Panic Room. And so when we started, we chose Fincher as our next director to do the whole career retrospective thing for. You were like one of the first. We put out the word to some people saying, which if anybody wants to guest on particular movies, let us know. And you jumped on Panic Room right away, which was very, very surprising to me. I did not expect Panic Room to go first in the draft.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us why that occurred?
It's like a weird, it's not even contrarian, but there's a contrarian element to it because I feel like the ones that would obviously be, the one people want to talk about would be like stuff like, Alien 3,
Fight Club,
Fight Club, Gone Girl, and like the ones that people would not want to talk about is Benjamin Button, which I would agree with too. But Panic Room, which is a movie I actually really enjoy. I saw it in theaters back in the day. I really enjoyed it. I had like the 3-disc DVD. Like the thing never came out on. I don't think the movie's come out on Blu-ray yet, for some reason. But
Lack of
I
interest.
I had all that. I mean, the movie was a success. It did pretty well. But I enjoy it, and I thought in terms of just a challenge of like what would you talk about with Panic Room, I decided just went I'll pick Panic Room. Well, why not? I feel like in every other movie's case, I feel like I'm sure they could find somebody that could bring a lot more to the discussion about Fight Club. Me, I just don't think of myself highly enough to talk about anything else except Panic Room.
You could become the world's foremost Panic Room scholar in like the course of an afternoon.
Yeah.
You might have to dig deeper into like the sociological underpinnings of Fight Club, or like Gone Girl says about society. But Panic Room, you can get up to speed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I tried to look for some stuff online. Like, what's been written about Panic Room? What are people's takes on this? What is nothing at all?
Nothing.
Like Fight Club, there's an ocean of it. You can drown in
Right.
people's interpretations and takes on Fight Club. Panic Room, you got nothing. Maybe one retrospective, like, well, we're talking about every Fincher movie, and one of them's Panic Room. So basically, what we're doing here, and
yeah, it would have to be people like us doing this exact thing. Is where all the Panic Room takes are coming from,
and that's where I thrive when there's nothing to talk about.
It actually, I think there's something weirdly fitting about that. The approach Joon just talked about to picking this is it almost feels like the premise of the movie was built out of this too. Like a screenwriter saying like, okay, here's a very limited premise. You got burglars outside and people stuck inside, and how much like juice can I squeeze from this orange? And I mean, I think they got pretty much every drop that you could from this premise out of it. Without making it,
if you're not going to
really
do characters,
ridiculous.
yeah. I mean, that's not, but...
that's not really fair. But you're right. We could find more easy takes or like more takes podcasts about the game than this.
The game has an idea. The game has some stuff that it's attempting. That it has a
it's got a big.
I like that. Al just shrugged. He's like threw his hands up.
I thought about that. I liked Panic Room. I had not seen it since I believe actually the first time I saw Panic Room, only other time until this week, was I downloaded it off of LimeWire probably in my dorm room.
Nice.
Over the course of like 8 days probably. But it was one of like two movies that like that I ever did that with. When like that was a new thing, it was kind of like we were like, wait, you can really do this? Like
Yeah.
this movie's in theaters, so it was a bad experience of it, and I didn't have particularly fond memories of it or anything. But I watched it this week, and I rather enjoyed it. I thought it's a very very competent B+ thriller, and I thought, especially coming off how much I did not enjoy the game, I thought it contrasted very well with that.
Interesting.
That
Okay.
its ambition is so much lower, but
Huh.
I like that about it compared to the game, whose ambition is greater, but I think also just a load of horseshit. And like going at, talking about that movie's twist, like there's that gives that movie, I guess, more of an identity than this movie really has. But there's also, at least to my mind, something very cheap about that twist. That, like, when everything's just this one elaborate ruse, like, and literally everyone is in on it. That's just it. It's like that's all-purpose plot spackle that can explain away anything and everything. And something about that feels cheap to me. Wherein it feels like Panic Room, I guess, feels more effortful, which is not doesn't sound like a nice thing to say about it, but I appreciate that. It's like it's working this one very limited premise very hard, and I think pretty effectively, at least to my mind.
I agree that it is proficiently managed. It is.
I'm sorry, John. Can we get that praise a little fainter, please?
I
can you just lean away from the microphone while you say it? Maybe that's
well. That you very much read my intent. Then this is like it's not a poorly made film. Like there's nothing that is actively bad in Panic Room. I would say it's just sort of there. I mean, I don't know why this movie exists beyond just like, hey. You hear people have panic rooms? You think there's a movie in that? I mean, that's the entire premise as far as I can tell. And I kind of find myself casting around, like watching this, okay, so what is the draw here for the creatives? Like, why did David Fincher want to make this movie? And I guess to swoop his camera around a CGI set as much as he can? Does he want to experiment with that? I mean, is it like the Zemeckis motion capture cartoons? It just wants to find something that is so just a medium that he can use to try this new artistic tool out, and I guess that's as far as it goes. As to like the other stuff, as to telling a story here, I mean, you can be like, well, it's a bit like Hitchcock, and that's the end. That's it. It's a premise that is kind of inherently tense, I guess, but at the same time, that just because the movie is called Panic Room, that the middle hour is going to be a sort of a detente where they're trying to get into the panic room and they're not going to let them into the panic room, and then eventually we get to a third act. That's it.
I'm sure if you asked them at the time that they would have referenced Hitchcock and probably Rope specifically as like part of the reason for doing this. But I mean, I don't want to scoop our, since we have access to the world's foremost panic room expert here. But here's my hypotheses for what you were asking, like why is this movie made, and why is this movie written and greenlit? My theory is somebody said, you heard people have panic rooms. Like, yeah, probably. I bet the kind of people who had panic rooms when that was a fad in the late 90s, like that customer base probably had a lot of like studio executive type people in it. And so it seemed like, oh, this is the new thing. Like everybody's hearing about this. We should, let's.
Yeah, I was buying this house the other day, and you know what they had in there? A panic room. Yeah, exactly.
And I thought, oh, this could be a movie. It didn't get very far beyond that, but I guess that was enough to get it whatever, $15 million budget or whatever it needed at the time. And then the other question is, why did Fincher take this on? And my theory is, you mentioned the camera work. This did do some pretty innovative stuff with camera work at the time, right? Like there was sort of the detached computer generated camera angles that hadn't been done before. Am I remembering this correctly?
Definitely, for sure.
It draws attention to itself. It's really what does. You're going to notice watching Panic Room is All the
All these
camera work.
questions, all these questions that you two have, I have answers.
Well, so my theory there, though, is that sort of like new camera techniques is something that Fincher wanted to experiment with, sort of the way that almost the way that Cameron would do with Avatar and like 3D stuff, or Peter Jackson would do with like the high frame rate nonsense in the Hobbit movies.
Yeah,
It was
or Zemeckis doing Beowulf. My example.
yes, Zemeckis doing Beowulf.
Polar Express.
Yeah, right. But it's sort of the technical aspect that keeps their interest in that project to a degree.
Right.
But I think with Fincher, where he's at this point, he kind of like didn't he intentionally may have picked the lowest stakes possible script, the most nothing of a script, where like after his experience on Alien 3, he knows I'm not going to get studio interference on how to I'm not going to get noted to death on how to make this Panic Room script because it's not a franchise or anything, and I can sort of do my formal experimentations unimpeded in this environment.
I assume that's exactly what it was. I can only assume. Yeah. But
no, I just made that up 2 minutes ago. So, expert, what do you say?
In terms of why Fincher made this, so okay, this is me after what is it? I perused my old DVD set, listened to all 3 commentary tracks, and watched all the documentaries.
There were 3 commentary tracks in this?
It actually Fincher's movies are actually really great about this. There's a Fincher commentary track. There's a one with the writer David Koepp, where he's joined by William Goldman, which is actually also a fun discussion where they just
I would actually.
Yeah, it's really great. I would totally recommend it. William Goldman just keeps grilling Koepp about like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? And I think this is great. And the third one is
I would take a Goldman commentary on pretty much any movie.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
No, if I can find a way to rip it, I'll send it to you if you're interested at all. But
yeah, sure.
Offer. So there's that, and the third commentary track is the actors. It's Jodie Foster, Dwight Yoakam, and Forrest Whitaker.
Oh, nice.
And interesting. And the interesting thing about this, and it all kind of goes into the way, I feel like the reason Fincher makes this movie. So it starts with the idea of panic rooms, which are actually called. David Koepp said they're actually called safe rooms, but safe room just doesn't sound very dangerous. So he rebranded it panic room. So I don't know if that panic room was what it was originally called, but he does it. Maybe thinking about the fact that maybe he'll direct it because he's a director too. Mm-hmm. It gets shopped around. It eventually gets to David Fincher, who at this point has made Fight Club, and after having made The Game and Fight Club, Fincher was at a point where those movies have a lot of location changes, and his experience of making movies with that many scene changes is just it's just so many trucks being unloaded. that was his experience. It's just so many trucks, so much waiting for trucks to drive in and teamsters to pull everything out. So he really wanted to try something with one single location, this go back to Alien 3. This guy, as we've seen from his work, is really, really a control freak. Right. And so this, I feel like
we certainly know that now.
Right. And this movie, what is it? This movie, after Panic Room, his next movie was wasn't until 5 years later with Zodiac, right?
Yeah.
So I had this feeling after a certain point, Fincher just kind of went a different direction after Panic Room, where he got more patient and more willing to kind of, he's still a control freak, but he lets loose a little bit more because Panic Room was the movie where he realized this much control does not work. He actually admitted this in a recent Ben Affleck on YouTube. There was a director on director discussion with Ben Affleck interviewing Fincher, and at some point Ben Affleck talks about when they're working together, Fincher let him showed him the Panic Room book, the Bible of what this movie is, how it's constructed, and he said Ben Affleck's going oh man, this is so amazing! Every shot, every camera placement, every actor's marks and everything, it's all detailed. And Fincher told me, do not do this.
I go back to Alien 3, and I that makes me wonder also if there's an element to this, conscious or unconscious, of Alien 3. I think the concept that he was shooting for was sort of similar to Panic Room, with this very claustrophobic setting with the antagonistic force and the stalking the people through it, and they're kind of holed up here. And he wasn't happy with how Alien 3 turned out, obviously. And
Definitely
so
not.
maybe there was part of it where he's trying to return to a similar setting and exercise a greater degree of control and
Right.
achieve a better result in that. And I will say, for Panic Rooms, in its credit, it is a better result than Alien 3.
Yeah.
So like, and then the fact that was it after 7, the follow up was The Game, which is the ultimate control freaks nightmare movie,
I suppose so, yeah.
right? Because this is stick up his ass, Michael Douglas just smashing his suitcase because he can't get it
Yeah.
open. So like Panic Room was like Fincher just exercising utter complete control over. He basically made the movie, designed and made the movie before anything was ever shot. Because this was the movie where he fully prevised it. You know, uh, tons of VFX movies get previs to shit like all the
Yeah.
time now, but this was pretty early on where it got taken this far, where every shot, every lens choice, every like they got down exactly how the set should be built so that they know which walls need to be removed. Like all of that was all decided before they ever, shot a foot of film. So it is like the ultimate control freaks movie, and he thought because of Kep wrote it as like a wham bam like just in and out efficient thriller. Fincher thought, oh, that's great. I'm going to try to make my efficient thriller movie, which with no pretensions other than here's a panic room and some stuff happens in it. That's all he thought of it, and
Well,
he
he certainly
realized
succeeded at the part about how nothing else is in this movie.
right, and he's just like, and according to David Kep, the script is pretty accurate to like not that much was changed, except for where it was necessary because Nicole Kidman was the original star of the movie.
Hmm.
But due to some, and they actually shot some stuff with Nicole Kidman for several weeks, but
Oh, really?
because
I
of
went that far?
yeah, because she aggravated an existing injury from Moulin Rouge at the time, they had to shut down. She couldn't continue because it's so many stairs. Like the movie has so many stairs. Like he's like, Nicole Kidman is going to be totally fine. She just can't walk up any stairs. Like, well, shit. What are we going to do
Yeah.
now?
Yikes.
So already like the best laid plans were already just out of control from that one change. It shuts the either you shut down production. I think there was a writer strike impending at the time, so if they don't make it now, they're not going to get to make it at all. So Jodie Foster comes in at the very last minute without like less than a week to prepare, and but just the fact that Jodie Foster replaces Nicole Kidman, they have a quite a height difference. Nicole Kidman is much taller than Jodie
Oh,
Foster,
it's gonna script
which
She's
means
shock.
much taller than human beings generally.
yeah, and because of that, all their best laid calculations and lens choices is just goes out the window.
Hmm.
And here's David Fincher on the commentary. Jodie Foster talks about, which she has like so much respect for David Fincher. It's like David excitedly showed me some of the previs. At the time, previs is pretty elaborate now, but at the time, these are really. It feels like those old PC games that used polygons, and there's like a T figure just moving along the scene.
Hmm.
This is where the actor is supposed to move. And Jodie Foster just says like he showed me really excited, and she couldn't watch more than a minute of it because it's useless to her, which I found really funny because it's all technical, it's all engineering. It's not very little of it is about performance.
Well,
But
that brings to
but
something else. I'm surprised. I'm surprised to hear that Jodie Foster came in that late in the game. I had no idea about the Nicole Kidman thing, but
yeah,
I honestly also wondered not just why did Fincher take this role, or take this movie on, but why did Jodie Foster take this role? She's pretty
uh,
picky in her
yeah,
adult
she
life,
is.
and I can't imagine anything about this script leaping out at her. This character doesn't have anything going on really.
I think
She
they
must have really
already.
wanted to work with Fincher.
I
Yeah, I
think
think
that's
they
what it
went.
was. Yeah.
The game was the point where I think they met and talked about her playing the Sean Penn role,
Yes, yeah, we talked
right?
about that in the
So
game.
I think they already had like a little bit of relationship. I think they had to kind of reached out, like, can you do it? Basically, can you do us a favor?
Yeah.
Like, if we can't get somebody to take this, we shut down and it just kind of goes all flying away. We have a whole set that's built to be this movie,
It's
and
also
yeah,
sort of the beginning of her her mom thriller run.
That's
Kind
true.
of like this sort of
What-
becomes the type of movie she makes for about a decade or so. Movies like Flight Plan and
Oh, right.
The Brave One.
Oh,
You know,
yeah, that's right. That's
Nell.
right. Yeah.
Nell. Yes.
Wait, the brave one or the brave? I forget. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's
The,
the
the
brave
Brave
one.
One.
The brave
I don't,
one.
it's either called The Brave or The Brave One, or it's the one that's brave. That one.
Well, one was brave and one's a brave one, or I don't. And then flight plan and red eye also get combobulated in my head.
Red
These
Eye
are all
is
movies that I have not seen.
Flight Plan's
Rachel
a Jodie Foster.
McAdams.
Right.
Mhm,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, they're similar to this in that they're sort of blockbuster rental thrillers. I guess
Perfect.
is how I would think of them. You know, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything, but they are star vehicles, and they're reliably profitable, and they're pot boilers, I guess you'd call them. They're
Well, and flight plan especially is sort of panic room on in the air, right? Like
yeah.
there's not a lot of waiting around for trucks to unload there. So if she's maybe in her raising a family phase, was taking on stuff that felt like less of a wasn't going to turn into a apocalypse now level
Right.
commitment.
Well, she was also
Even
kind of
though
like directing things and making movies
Yeah.
on her own terms there. So these might be the sort of things that keep the lights on, I guess.
Yeah.
for
So
sure,
she can
I'm
make
sure that's.
Little Man Tate. Yeah.
But yeah, that was it got her interested in making her own thriller, which she made Money Monster a few years ago. Remember that? The one with
yeah.
George Clooney and.
I mean,
Julia
I didn't see it,
Roberts.
but I remember it.
Yeah, so she's interested. I mean, and that was the other thing. Fincher talks about, like, if you ever want to make a movie that's this specific and where you just need actors to come in and just hit their marks, hire directors, because Foster, Whitaker, and Dwight Yoakam are all directors also.
It's just that simple. Just
It's just it's like it's
go
like
to
'cause
that big pool of acting directors.
yeah. So he jokes that like a director understands when you just want an actor to come here, hit your mark, and just nod your head. They're not going to ask you, what's my motivation here. They just go, okay, I got it, and they'll just do it, and they'll just move on, so they can just keep pounding along. A production that actually went for, along with all the delays, this is one of the, I don't know if this is still the case, but this is one of the longest productions of Fincher's career. It shot for about it shot for
Wow.
150 days, like 5 months.
I thought Zodiac went super.
Zodiac, I'm not sure.
I think Jodie Foster got pregnant while shooting this, and they had to stop for a period of time. Does that
Yeah,
take that into account, maybe?
A little bit, but I think in the end they still shot for, like, in total, like, even if it's not consecutive, they did shoot like 5 months of stuff. Like she did.
And counting the Nicole Kidman stuff probably too.
Yeah, probably too. Forrest Whitaker, who was on the movie the whole time, he says that he was on it for like 150 days.
No.
And which is like the ultimate irony is that this is like, it's the basic pot boiler, that it should be in and out really quickly. It's one location, but because it's David Fincher, he can't
Right.
do that.
Yeah.
And so this movie ends up taking 150 days because every action that they do also needs to cut away to the CRT monitors, the security monitor version of it, which has to be
Right.
lit differently, which has to be reperformed. Everything they break, they have to repatch up for every take. And Fincher, as we know, does a lot of takes. So I think there was one point somebody describes, like, they shot for like 3 weeks on what ended up being like an eighth of a page of script.
Goo.
So it's just like I don't know how they do it. Like, so when people talk about Fincher's proclivities as a director in terms of how much time he takes to get stuff perfect because he's such a perfectionist, like Panic Room is like the ultimate example where even he realized, I can't do it like this.
It
So I
sounds like
think-
the movie should be a total mess. The way it should have come out as a total unwatchable disaster.
But Fincher's too good for that to let that happen, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't really do that. Even Alien 3, which
Right.
is in many ways a disaster, is
Oh, yeah.
still watchable. It's still, it's still something that you can kind of decide you love if you want, I guess.
Yeah, I only watched Alien 3 recently, the theatrical cut, because of you guys were doing Fincher. So I finally watched it, going in, knowing everything, all the problems around it, which I have known about. I thought it was a pretty cool movie.
It's not terrible. No, it
No,
you
it's
know
not terrible.
it has disastrous problems, but it's still watchable and compelling in that way.
Right.
I mean,
Like
we haven't hit an uncompelling one yet. I mean, I know
like
your feelings on the game, Al, but even
Well, yeah, and I mean, my feelings on the game also are entirely based at the script level. It's nothing Fincher is doing with that movie is making it any worse. I just I just don't accept it at a base level. And and here I feel like he's again elevating material, but it's very different material. It's in this very simple simple confined conflict space. Uh,
I have a problem with this script. Just in the well, I would say this is maybe like the best version of this script you're going to get.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know that I don't feel it's too different from the worst version of this script in a sense. I feel like this has such a very specific thing that it's doing, and as long as it's competent, it's going to basically look exactly how it looks, and and as a result, all the planning, all the swooping camera stuff, and elaborate shot setups, and classical trickery and innovation. I don't know that it amounts to anything particularly remarkable in Panic Room. I don't know what the end result of all that is.
it certainly doesn't amount to anything.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
There's no articulable theme to this script. There, so I guess this is one of the things that stood out to me when I was watching. I was trying to figure out if this is this a problem with this script or is this an asset to the script? But it's a very sort of lo-fi premise, and so I think to a certain degree it's good for the movie that it's done in a way where like there are no criminal masterminds or like superheroes on either side. Um,
I like
Jodie
that. Yeah,
Foster's character is not like a particularly uh, crafty or smart or impressive uh, heroine, but also like the villains don't really have their shit together either, and that's kind of important. Like that allows the premise to actually like get going and like them to find themselves in this standoff in a way that's a little more believable um, because they kind of fumble their way into it. Uh, but also like I think on a script level, like if you were in like a writing class or something and you were giving like critiques of this, you'd be like, well, what is the defining characteristic of can you describe to me Jodie Foster's character in terms of like personality traits or something? Like is there anything that she learns to get over in this movie or like to like a fear that she really confronts? Like
Mm-mm, not really.
no. And there's no again like there's no theme to this.
I believe the character was kind of recalibrated a little bit because after the recasting, because Nicole Kidman and Jodie Foster have very different screen personas.
Mm.
Because I think when it was Nicole Kidman, I think there was more. From the hint I got from the commentary was that there was a sense that she would be kind of more skimpily dressed while running around the house. I think there was a sense that because this was at a particular time in Nicole Kidman's career where there's more of a sex appeal, and
With Kim, and I can definitely see that it would the aspect of her being like a trophy wife that's in
right,
the process of getting
right,
divorced would be more pronounced, and so you could do. I mean, maybe that's a better version of the movie actually, where there's you could do something of it's this woman who's relied on like men to take care of her entire life or
right.
whatever, and she's sort of has to learn to stand on her own 2 feet and protect her daughter. You don't really get that from the Foster version of the character.
And that was the thing where they realized when when they got Foster to come in is that Jodie Foster is not this character. She can't play that like a flighty like model type.
She's not a trophy wife. She's a very
Right,
attractive woman, but that's not.
right,
She's clearly
right,
like too obviously intelligent, I guess,
right.
for that.
So in that case, I think that's what ended up kind of happening with the character, where at most she may have been a trophy wife when she was younger, but now that she's a little bit older, she got replaced with another trophy wife, and Like, yeah, there's very little sense of who she was before, other than her relationship with her daughter.
Yeah,
But also, her relationship with the daughter has not changed appreciably in that last scene when they're like sitting together looking for a new place.
Which
this is
I
uh,
think,
this is all Kidman stuff. This is actually something I read about this. This was the research I did on this was the Kidman thing, and this is the Fincher quote on this is that Nicole Kidman's performance was going to be about glamour and physicality, and when it turned into Foster, it became more political. And I don't really know what the hell that means, but
it's it's hard to like project ourselves back to like what the word political meant like in
right.
2015. I really don't know what it meant in 2002. what
right. Mm-hmm.
I think
what
he's using it
political
in the more.
themes are being unraveled here? I have no.
I think he's talking just the very general. It's not literal politics, but like just political in terms of it's just more about the intellect as opposed to the more prurient image of a glamorous woman, running around her house in like lingerie. Because
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about the animatics that they like Fincher was showing Jodie Foster, and she says it was just this half naked woman in a T pose sliding around the room. It's like, did they do it like that because they expected Nicole Kidman to be running around in like her underwear for like most of the movie, and then Jodie Foster comes in and like very early on she told them I'm pregnant, and they had to they shot the movie in sequence, so they didn't have to worry too much about like stuff going back and forth. But at some point, she did say, "I'm going to be showing, at a certain point in this production, so you're going to have to put me in a sweater at some point." So it was they say that it was a race to get to the point where she could put on a sweater at some point in the movie. So that was to hide her pregnancy belly. And for a lot of the stuff that gets physical later in the movie, it was Jodie Foster's stunt double doing most of it because obviously pregnancy.
Yeah. Uh, I do get a sense, like you were saying, the trophy wife aspect would have played better with Kidman, and there might have been something to that character having to like come into her own, and and actually, take care of business, in a sense,
Yeah, and maybe
and
her daughter didn't really
for
respect her at the start, and
yeah, that's the other thing they say is that originally Kristen Stewart was supposed to be extremely different than her mom. That
Mm-hmm.
she was this
Yeah.
sort of weird tomboy, and then when Jodie Foster got it, they had to rewrite that, and they're like, okay, well, actually, they're just sort of the same, which is just less dramatic naturally, but it makes sense if you're,
it's
you're
less
doing
dramatic,
Jodie
but
Foster.
also, but it makes that relationship weirdly like more believable. And I think that's actually a I would point that as an asset of this movie is that they are a believable mother daughter combo.
They
Um,
are.
that there is
Hmm.
there is not ginned up, uh, you know, issues for them to get over during this, as much as that is what a screenwriting manual would tell you need for a premise like this.
Well, maybe there's some point to having the ginned up issues, maybe in the screenwriting manual. I mean, maybe that is maybe that does have some value. Because yeah, they're believable, but they don't really have art.
The fact that it got changed to something that wasn't like an obvious like screenwriting 101 thing actually suits Fincher's general approach to stuff. So the daughter becoming similar, and this just being a situation this woman has to deal with, as opposed to it being a major like character arc for her, kind of actually suits like Fincher's kind of muted approach to this kind of storytelling. I think he also described the in terms of setting up the fact that the daughter has diabetes. Like they never wanted like Fincher being Fincher, he didn't want to do a scene where they're like it's like make sure to take this for your diabetes. Like they just like when I saw the movie back in 2002, I didn't know anybody who was diabetic, so I had no idea that she was diabetic until later in the movie when it became important. Even though the movie was setting it up with visual, like cues about the medical pack in the little freezer,
In
little
the mini
cooler,
fridge, yeah.
and the mini fridge and stuff like that. So it's him trying to, like as I said, direct the shit out of a very workman-like script
Yeah,
in a way that only he feels that he could.
and that's one of the points where I feel like actually, yeah, that Robert McKee might tell you that you need to more clearly establish for the dummies in the back row what diabetes is and all that. but I don't know that you do need it in this case. I think that uh, she ends up having to like walk Forrest Whitaker through the
Right.
implications of all this anyway. So
Right.
we get that information when we need it
Right.
in a way that is pretty organic. So yeah, I don't know that we need a heavier handed setup there.
All you really need is she's sick and she needs an injection or she'll die. Like, and that, that's all
Yeah,
that
it's
is.
not that.
Yeah, that's it.
It's not that ornate of a setup. It's just a
It's
thing.
not, but like if it came out of nowhere though, because it's not, it doesn't happen until like way later. Like if you didn't know, it would feel like it becomes a problem out of nowhere.
Yeah, but I mean, they include a little bit of like when they're first
Right.
getting locked into the room. It's like Jodie Foster's checking on her, and she's like saying like, "You're making me more stressed. Like
Right.
I'm okay for now." And they're checking on the thing. Like it's
Right.
there. It doesn't come out of nowhere by any means.
Yeah. So yeah, but for the dummy that I was in 2002, I was like, why are they being so weird? This was my reaction. But
That is well set up, and I like how not explicitly explained it is, but it's not like the movie doesn't have explicit exposition.
for sure. When it
yeah.
comes to the panic room, they describe everything.
This used to be
I think they
owned by that famous financier. His family's squabbling over where the money is. Oh, well, all that stuff in the first scene. All that,
they do need to explicate that for us in a way they don't
Yeah.
need to walk us through diabetes. But we need to understand like the concept of a panic room was sort of popularized by this movie. We need to be walked through like what that meant and have some groundwork for why these burglars are so intent on breaking in.
Which leads us to like I love everything Jared Leto does in this movie. Like I know Jared Leto is kind of like a poisonous in terms of the way he's discussed now, but back then, the period of time where he was a actor that David Fincher liked to like
Yep.
brutalize in Fight Club and in this, he was
He
just
does
a
like
lot
to
of fun.
destroy Jared Leto's beautiful face.
I just love his like shitty rich guy performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the best work of Jared Leto's career, probably.
Yeah,
And
I
also-
mentioned that flippantly during the Fight Club episode. That like, is this the best thing Jared Leto ever did? And we kind of laughed it off and said, yeah, maybe. But no, this is better. I mean, it's more elaborate. And this is at a time when Jared Leto, I think, is more like hungry,
Yeah.
and I feel like he needs to prove he's not just a pretty face. And now he has definitely convinced himself
Yeah.
that he is not just a pretty face, and he is a very serious actor who should be considered among the Brandos and the Ledgers and so forth.
Yeah, I mean that this is kind of his first role that was like not just, a TV actor who has a few scenes, and is pretty, like in Fight Club. This is kind of the first time he plays a real character in a movie, and he really goes for it. And yes, I think it's his best performance possibly ever. I also think it's maybe my least favorite performance in this film.
No, the ex-husband, I don't think is very
He
great.
doesn't count.
No. Oh, I was saying, what is it? Jared Leto was in terms of proving he's more than a pretty face. He was in Requiem for a Dream, and I think that was 2000, and this was 2002. So he was really kind of trying to.
I'm straight up wrong then. Yeah, okay. And that's also his best performance.
Yeah, we really forgot about that. That was part
Damn
of his whole career.
Yeah. My thing with Leto is I saw, I believe the movie is called Chapter 23, where he plays Mark David Chapman, guy who kills John Lennon.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember this now.
It is a ruinous performance. It is the kind of performance that destroys an actor in your eyes forever. Like it's in a literal way, because it kind of exposes all his tricks and all his bullshit, and you can see it for the surface level thing it is. And now even the performances people like that I see him do, like the one he won the Oscar for, they just read as surface level bullshit. Yeah. I can't buy him in any role anymore. And this movie, I kind of could buy him.
I feel like John Travolta has 3 or 4 of those.
Yes, he does. The stuff that comes before him tends to be removed, though. You can get away with, this beforehand. And so even though he is a little bit of a cartoon in Panic Room, even though he is kind of doing a Broadway stage performance while everyone else is acting in a movie, even Forrest Whitaker, who loves to overact, one of the great overactors,
Yeah.
plays this as a real guy. It's one of the most subdued, naturalistic Forrest Whitaker performances ever. And then Leto's kind of
Yeah, really.
flying off the Leto's exploding and being a goofball, and
And
being
then
a
there's
silly
Dwight
villain. Yeah,
and there's
Yoakum's
Dwight
great.
Yoakam in a ski mask. I know
I
I
love
love
that.
him in this movie.
I kind of wish he never took that off.
I
I guess
love
he has to for the plot.
I love that he take. Well, I get why like having him in it the whole time would be great, but I love the moment where it finally comes off and his hand gets crushed in the panic room door, and you see his like sweaty, like contorted face just like squealing like a pig.
Yeah, his ugly Dwight Yoakam
Like that,
face. Yes.
yeah, that big reversal was just so fantastic. Like he's really trying hard to be tough, but his fingers are like jammed in the...
That's a really effective performance too, though. Is like playing a very scary person who is at the same time trying to convince you he's scary. Like it's kind of hard to do both at once, and I think he does. He's doing a character that is kind of all about show, and he's putting on an air, but that doesn't make him any less actually dangerous. Like he still will kill you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is that like that to add to that, he's a scary guy who's clearly also super freaked out about going to prison again or something. So you see that desperation whenever he's trying to act tough, like when he's doing tough guy lines, and Jared Leto's like, don't try to do that Elmore Leonard shit to me because I saw that movie too, right? Like
I know you drive a bus, Raoul. Yeah, all that. It's when
he is very effective off, despite that.
When he gets that mask off, he's got kind of a Buffalo Bill thing going too.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And then there's a scene where the door finally reopens, and you see like Dwight Yoakam desperately try to pick up his fingers again. In terms of Fincher's like dark sense of humor, that's one of the things I really like about this movie, because nothing's like like waka waka funny, but the characters just being such desperate losers, like all three of them.
Yeah.
I just get a lot of comedy out of it, to the point where I feel like they become the show more so than Finch on Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart.
I think
definitely
is almost the protagonist of this movie.
He is because they do such a good job of that. One of the notes the studio and the test screenings gave was that, like, please let him get away with it, like let him win.
Oh.
But Fincher, because like this kind of gets into like where you could kind of get into like Fincher's like sense of morality about all his movies. He would not do that because he did something wrong. There needs to be some kind of consequence to that.
Well, the other way to look at that is he essentially at the end, he kind of knows when he goes back in that he's giving up his chance to escape. So this is in a way the fourth movie in a row for Fincher that has ended in a suicide or suicide attempt.
Yeah,
like it's a suicidal gesture.
That's true.
It is his redemption in a sense.
Yeah,
but also in a sense, it's what gets him caught and goes to jail for the rest of his life, presumably. Yeah,
I guess it's not 4 movies in a row. I skipped over 7 there. I mean, 7. Is very also... like has a suicidal bent to it. I suppose John Doe does make a it's a suicide, murder suicide thing. Yeah, so.
Definitely.
If you consider John Doe to be a Fincher protagonist, which in some ways he is, that's. I mean, but like I said, like Forrest Whitaker being a protagonist, it's also that way because Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart are locked in a room the entire time. The burglars are the ones who are more proactive throughout the whole movie. They're the ones trying to get things done and make things happen.
That's why the script has to do the reversal, where at some point it's Jodie Foster trying to get into the room, which is in terms of writing, it's it's a nice development. It's like
it's kind of mandatory though. Like if you're going to do an entire movie on this premise, like that's the only like third act you can really have. I feel
that's where I start to feel movies stretching for things that they can do with a panic room. They're just
I'd agree with that. Yeah, like there's that certain part where it's at least after she gets her shot, that slow attempt to try to slowly figure out a way to get out of there and place her husband with a broken shoulder, holding a gun on a chair, is like don't move, please.
Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier in a complimentary way, but it's definitely draining all the blood from this stone. Like that's they do. In order to make an actual 3-act movie out of this, you do need to reverse that situation
Right.
towards the end of the second act into the third act. I think.
I think Kep intended the movie to be like a really lean 90-minute thriller, but Fincher being Fincher, it ends up being 2 hours. The movie is all like, I think it's
Is it
almost
2
2
hours?
hours. I think it's almost 2 hours.
Hour 53 or something like that. It might be the shortest Fincher movie we've talked about. Probably
And
the
yet
shortest
for the
ever. But
and yet for the
Alien 3 is
premise,
not that long, is it? It
I don't
feels
know. I
like
watched
it's
the
10
work
years
cut.
long.
it does
No.
feel long. Alien 3
Yeah.
does feel long, but I think that one was just about 2 hours, like either a little less or a little more.
Hmm.
But it
The
did
one I
feel
watched
long.
was 2.5, and it was eternal. Let me tell you.
Well, I'm telling you, it's an endurance test even in its theatrical form. So it may or may not be actually longer than this, but yeah, this one certainly doesn't need to be as long as it is. It could be
Right.
89 minutes. You know, like
Yep.
there's like I said, there's not a lot of meat here on these bones.
Mhm. You could do like post screening, like, kind of discussions about, class and race, because there's definitely a class element to this, story, just by the nature of it, because it's only rich people who have panic rooms, and it's only like rich people who get so paranoid about this stuff that they would have, about people, taking their wealth, that they'd want a panic room, and the only person that wants to break in ends up being the family member.
And
Yeah.
the guy who installed it. That's my favorite thing. Is that that Forrest Whitaker is playing a guy who has learned a trade and has also kind of hit the ceiling with that trade. Like he's only going to get X amount of money for the rest of his life doing this, and he sees an opportunity to break out of his economic bracket, and that is what drives him to do things. I think he mentions having a kid at one point, like that.
Yeah, he does.
This is the stuff that makes him kind of the character you're invested in. Is that he has made the calculation.
Really, he mentions it several times.
I just want my kids back.
Yeah. Well, and there is a more screenplay manual version of this where that's played up a lot more, that like he and Jodie Foster be like both being parents that are trying to go to these extreme lengths to protect their kids in opposing ways. And Fincher apparently was not that interested in that angle, so he didn't play it up very much.
I think that's just Fincher's approach. I think he does, care about it, but not to the point where he's going to, devote like an entire scene to like people, monologuing or doing that much exposition about it.
Well, I think if you do contrast like that Forrest Whitaker character with the, let's say, Nicole Kidman character version of this character, which is, a trophy wife who has just got this absurdly large house that she doesn't need, far too big for 2 people. It's 4 stories in the Upper West Side.
And she's overcompensating because she doesn't have a great relationship with her daughter, and she's trying to buy her affection in the divorce.
Oh, it was more like sticking it to the husband.
Yeah,
like
it's fuck
using
him.
her husband's money to basically
pay for this house. If it's going to be like that, and you contrast that with this blue collar guy who's kind of like taking his shot at the brass ring. That's something, and you call the blue collar guy the bad guy. I that is an interesting setup for a film, and they kind of do that, but with Jodie Foster playing the role, that element of that character kind of just doesn't exist. And I think she's good in this movie. I think she's pretty much always good no matter what. But I don't know. I almost think that maybe the Nicole Kidman film has a little bit more thematically to chew on. But even then, not a ton. It's
well, the character has more definition in that case. Mm-hmm. It's I mean, maybe it's even regressive in some ways to our modern sensibilities, even. But
it is.
But there would still be a character there. We could describe that character in a way that it's hard. We're calling her Jodie Foster. We're not calling her
Meg Altman.
Meg Altman.
Sullivan. Altman. Yeah. Yeah. We're not using. But who knows? Going back to the class warfare thing you're talking about, I think there is something interesting, a little bit interesting there, about how Jared Leto is like the villain who comes from the upper class and who kind of puts this all together and like gets the whole terrible ball rolling that gets all these people ruined, and also is the first to like bail on it because he can
He's
bail on
fine.
it in a way
Yeah.
that Forrest Whitaker can't, and
And
like
Dwight Yoakam can't.
he really wanted that money, but he can also do without it.
And what was it? It's not only is he rich, but he's also a guy that got cornrows,
Yeah, I love that. Good
which
choice.
was a idea, which was supposedly Fincher says it was a totally Jared Leto idea. Jared Leto just came in one
No
day.
way.
What do you think? He's like, all right, which is like good for you, Jared Leto. You did good. Like he's a guy that likes to. He's rich, but he wants to be a tough guy, so that's why he knows a guy like Raul. He just goes around.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's all like nothing is explicitly said in Fincher movies like this. It just through behavior and little clues, showing that this is a rich guy, spoiled rich guy that likes to think he's tougher than he actually is, and goes tour like the way the narrator in Fight Club goes touring in cancer support groups. This guy goes touring with criminals or something.
Yeah, I assume he met some people in like rehab that were from a rougher background, and he conned on to that and decided he could be the rough and tumble guy in his like bougie circle.
But
Never quite pulled it off.
oh, this is me just I wanted to kind of do more praise for Forrest Whitaker's performance. Just little moments here and there where he's trying to he's nervously trying to give Kristen Stewart the shot, and while he's doing it, he's just kind of just mutters to himself, "I wish I could have given my kids like a place like this." Like just little just while he's doing it, just that. And there's a moment. Because part of the reason Forrest Whitaker's character gets stuck in this is because he thinks that the cameras are recording.
Yeah.
Right. And then when he finally gets up there, he realized like they were never recording to begin with. So it's just like, God damn it.
Yeah, there were no VHS tapes in there. That is, so I do like that.
That little touches like that, where just like it says, just that Forrest Whitaker just has that face that's just really, really you could really empathize with, just because he has really sad eyes. So when it's just the close up of him,
he does have the saddest eyes in the business.
I know he's great. So I mean, that's why I'm not surprised at all that test screening audiences and the studio just went like, "Can you please let him get away with it? Yeah. Like we want to see this guy win." And Fincher's like, "Nope. If you want to do that, you're going to got to give me $3 million to rebuild this stuff and reshoot." And the studio's like, "Never mind."
I like that he burns at the end, or not. Presumably goes to jail forever because of his goodness, because of his good act.
I think that's it's like a really good way. I get why a test screening audience would find that really dissatisfying, but it's really there's something really cruel about the way it ends with him with the bearer bonds like twirling away in the wind, and then the next scene is Jodie Foster and her daughter on a park bench saying, "Where are we going to live next?" I'm just thinking, I'm thinking, God damn, that's me.
Is that intentional, or is it just movie being movie? Is sort of like, because if it's intentional, I love it.
It's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both. I don't know, like if it's like it's intended to be cruel. I think that's just Fincher's way of seeing the world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it could be just movie being movie, but Fincher definitely finds something like very darkly funny about that. I think he sees that and has an eyebrow raised about it at least, but
yeah, he does.
It's a raised.
There's
eyebrow.
a moment. There's a moment in the commentary where he does talk about like how bad can you feel for this woman who can afford this house. So he's aware. He was definitely aware of like the class, like oh, this poor woman, but like she could afford this house. How much sympathy can we have for her? And I don't think he's not a guy who cares about that much as most. I feel like most filmmakers would be.
I find him to have a lot of empathy for the rich, generally speaking.
Think so?
Like, I think that comes across in.
It was part of my critique of the game is that I did not feel as much sympathy for Michael Douglas as I was being asked to.
I listened to your commentary, and one of the things I enjoy about, I think Fincher likes poking at the rich. Like, he's a rich guy, so I'm sure, he has a certain amount of sympathy. But when he actually makes his movies, I feel like the way, like, I didn't feel sorry for Michael Douglas's character in the game, but I loved just watching him break down. Like, that was my enjoyment of the game. So like when he gets
sadism,
kind of which I think suits Fincher's kind of MO. But so when he gets his big catharsis moment on the airbag at the end, I'm not like particularly moved by any of that. I just thought, what a fun ending. But because I'm not like I think the moment I would probably say I get the most like emotional catharsis for him is when he goes and apologizes to his ex-wife. Like it's just this quiet scene of where he says, he's sorry for like being that distance. I feel like that's the moment where I would actually say he's changed, and everything else
It's the
after
most
that is
human
just
moment.
yeah, and everything else after that is just the movie kind of finishing up its premise.
Right.
So for me, like uh, feeling sympathy for Michael Douglas is only in terms of just like that really sucks to be him. It's my enjoyment of watching that.
Yeah, well, Jodie Foster is a much more sympathetic presence than Michael Douglas
Yeah,
generally.
definitely.
I don't think that should not be a very controversial statement.
And yet, despite that, Forrest Whitaker's blue collar character is the one that we come out the most um, sympathetic towards. And but Fincher being Fincher, he says like no, that if he gets away with it, he feels that it would be just like movie BS.
Well, I think that also ties back into the fact that the idea that he's the real protagonist here because he's more active. We feel like we go through more of a journey for him, whereas
Yeah,
with Jodie Foster, even though she is, uh, our identification character or some more sympathetic character we're supposed to be rooting for, she's also just sort of in stasis for at least
right.
half of this movie,
Yeah, just kind of
and
sitting there.
physically, yeah, just sitting there and going and watching Forrest Whitaker on the cameras going, what are they doing now? Um, so yeah, maybe we're more drawn to more active characters.
He's
But
also
it's
the one
also
with
like,
something at stake, much more at stake. And I know Jodie Foster technically does have, she's fighting for her life and her daughter, but at the
Mhm.
same time, we know that's going to end up okay as audience members. I mean, I'm sorry, we just do. Whereas we
well,
don't
I
know
don't
what's
know.
going to
I mean,
happen.
we talked about Fincher's got a track record here there of he's got 7 under his belt,
There's also that
True.
in terms of the
and
sadism.
Alien
So
3.
these movies are more about like we know they're gonna the stars gonna survive, they're gonna win, but how much in the moment can the filmmaker you know for a moment fool us into thinking that they're in real trouble, right? So there's a part at the end when the movie they're almost about to escape, but then Dwight Yoakam like basically crawls back up the stairs with a sledgehammer like a golem,
Yeah.
and then at some point he socks like full on punches Kristen Stewart in the face. And I feel like that in terms of sadism, I feel like that's something that most filmmakers would not at especially in 2002 making a mainstream studio blockbuster would have done. Like I think in that scene is actually kind of horrifying because you don't expect that kind of violence. It's not that violent, but because it's the little girl and she's in the
Yeah,
fireplace just she's like screaming in pain.
I think it actually, and I think it actually works really well in that context of even if you're very convinced, okay, we're in the last bit of this movie and they're about to triumph, it jolts you in a way that you
Yeah.
were not expecting at that moment. And I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't take that part out. No offense to
No,
Kristen
right.
Stewart, who's I think has a lovely face that I would should not punch, uh, but I think
But
it works. And I mean, go ahead. I, I don't know if this is a different type of movie bullshit or anything, but it is like a crime movie staple too. That the it goes back to Heat or any other number of movies where like the criminal that tries to like be the good guy still kind of takes the loss in the end. That
right.
there's something about
Yeah.
that's like the code of crime, at least in American fiction. That uh, if you're trying to do an evil thing while still being a good guy about it, you're gonna fail and you're gonna like be destroyed by it.
Yeah. And the good
And
thing is what's going to bring you down, probably.
Right.
and
Yeah. Like
the what is it
dramatic
the
irony.
William the Goldman and the David Kep commentary, they actually go into that. Both of them were just like saying like nope, he had to lose because this is a treasure of the Sierra Madre movie. You can't get
Yeah.
away with you can't get away with the treasure. Like so that is like as
Yep.
far as it goes pure movie convention, but it's one I would say I agree with. Like it's too easy if they all it's like I feel like we've gotten away from that with modern blockbusters. Like the moment I heard them talk about that, I thought, you mean like Furious? Was it Fast and Furious 5, where the heroes get everything that they wanted, like a safe full of money just pouring out of and it's like happy music.
But by that point in the Fast and Furious series, which I have not really seen, so you have to tell. This
Oh,
is a
okay,
genuine question. But are
yeah.
they not just the heroes, even though they're technically criminals? Like,
Yeah, pretty
Aren't they
much.
the Avengers or the? Yeah.
I mean, I think
Pretty
they're
much.
fighting a drug
The
war.
fifth one, yeah. The
Yeah.
fifth one's basically them like, but of course the funny thing is that the safes that they were dragging that had all the money in it basically tear through the city, destroying buildings while they're driving them.
I've
So
seen
Oh
some
yeah,
clips of that.
they kill so many people in those films.
with those cables. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's happy when they open the safe and we're rich, rich.
The one movie I can think of that that bucks that convention and like made an impression on me because of this, because I thought it was such a foregone conclusion. That's like, okay, he's the nice guy criminal, but that has to doom him in the end. But it didn't really. Is Ben Affleck's The Town?
I
Oh
can't
yeah.
even remember what I
Mhm.
can't remember what happens in that.
He
But they
gets
get
away with the money and like leaves a note for his girlfriend they left behind, and
oh man, I
it's sort of
completely
like
forgot.
he's bearded at the end.
You're right. That's all I remember. I don't remember him getting the money. That's weird.
Obviously, Panic Room is not really innovating that much within the form when we're talking about crime fiction.
It
Or
is a genre exercise. You know,
yeah,
this is straight up just like it's one of those movies. It's a thriller. It's come see this and buy a bucket of popcorn, and you'll have a pleasant enough Saturday night. You know, it's a good date movie. It's fine. Yeah.
I think of it more as this is on HBO on Saturday night. You're not going out. This will be a good sitting on the couch thriller,
Sure.
more than a in the theater experience. I don't know if that's a distinction that only exists in my head, but
No, no, that's totally. It's like it is that kind of movie, like the kind where if you catch it on TV, you might kind of keep watching it from a certain point. Like I was like, oh, I remember this part. Like I'll watch a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
Until the
once
commercials
you've
start.
seen it, though, if it's just starting, you're not going to watch the whole thing
No, no,
because
it
you're not
has to
going to
be
want to sit through the first 20 minutes.
right, right. It have to be right when you have to walk in right when like the like burglars have already gotten in or something like
Yes,
that.
yeah. Once the burglars arrive, then you might get sucked into it.
There's a thing that, and this isn't just Panic Room, but early Fincher's career, I feel like he had the sense of it, like after Alien 3. But when he talks about Seven, the thing that appealed to him about the Seven screenplay was that, oh man, this is going to be my head in the box movie. Like that was a big part of the appeal for him. And right, it's like this is going to be my head in the box movie. It's the head in the box movie. Like if you ever catch it on cable, you're gonna go, what's the head in the box movie? And then when you got the oh you're reading an old screenplay. Here's the revised screenplay. It's like, where's the head in the box? I want to make the head in the box movie. So he was the one that got the movie to go back to that ending. And the game was a similar thing. Like I'm sure the twist of the game really appealed to him at the time. It doesn't anymore. Like he looks back on it and he says that one we didn't figure out the third act. But I imagine when he was a young man, that really appealed to him. Fight Club.
Yeah, I think in our Fight Club episode, which is not you have not had a chance to hear yet, I
Mhm.
mentioned that I feel like we almost lost David Fincher to like the big twist ending M Night Shyamalan
Oh,
'90s thing.
I think you
Between
mentioned that in the game
oh
episode.
yeah, maybe that was it.
Yeah.
Well, I
And that
like the
was it.
Panic Room is him breaking away from
Right, right. And
that
after
after
that,
the
it's
game Fight Club
Zodiac.
7 in a row.
Right,
Yeah. Oh yeah, Zodiac is exact. I mean, really the opposite of that,
right.
just refusing to play by Hollywood rules. But we'll get there when we get to that, and we have to. Oh no, wait, we don't. Zodiac comes before Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's next. Zodiac's
Um,
next. Mhm.
yeah,
Oh
but I'm
man,
really looking forward to that real life serial killer romp, and really
Zodiac.
dreading the Forrest Gump sci-fi version thing.
Oh man, I
I'm
love
noticing a
Zodiac.
pattern with Fincher movies now, which is that like it goes disappointment masterpiece, and that kind of continues through his entire career if you check it out. And I mean, you could call some of them less a masterpiece or less a disappointment along the road, but it is very distinct. Like it's every other one is terrific. Is kind of what's happened,
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
does continue
yeah.
to
If you
happen.
take the even numbered ones, if you're skipping through the even numbered films, it goes Seven, Fight Club, Zodiac, Social Network, Gone Girl,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't let Mindhunter screw up anything in the meantime, which we'll get to as
Mank.
well.
Mank.
Uh,
Well, Manx on
well,
the
we're a
downbeat.
ways off from Mank. So we're a ways off from Mank. But we're going to try and rope June back into for Benjamin Button, just
Mhm.
because he's a glutton for punishment.
Yeah,
Again.
man, you're on the hook for it
I've
now.
I've tried to watch Mank a couple times now. I can't do it yet. I need to like really be able to sit down and do the thing.
I'm going to wait on Mank. I haven't seen it yet.
Here's
I know we're
a.
doing this, so I waited.
It's funny that his first major hit was featured Kevin Spacey, and given that Kevin Spacey was really great at smarmy characters, like really pieces of shit. And at some point after he won the Oscar, he started doing for like kind of heartwarming stuff, and it never suited him. Right.
No,
Yeah.
terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like Fincher is in a similar position because Fincher's sensibilities are so cynical. Whenever he tries to do a Benjamin Button or
You're saying that Benjamin Button is Fincher's The Life of David Gale?
yeah, that
K-Pax.
K-Pax or what else is there?
Yeah.
Pay it forward. Pay it
You get a
forward.
bunch of them. Yeah. Uh-huh.
We're stepping on our Benjamin Button material, which God knows we're going to need to find something to talk about there. So, any last thoughts on Panic Room?
No,
This is not what I want to see him doing. It's fine.
It doesn't leave you as much. That's what you
I think I'd argue it was a necessary step for him.
Yeah.
Like especially given the amount of work he put in, like amount of days and effort he put into making something that is basically what you described as a really fine movie to catch on cable. I feel like, and him realizing that.
Yeah, like the ceiling for this was never any higher than that. Really.
Right, and he knew that. Like
for me, yeah,
and he knew that he wanted to make a really simple movie, like just exercise ultimate control over it. And then he realized that no, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, he still does that. He just doesn't do it to that degree anymore. Like he wants to, with his conversation with Affleck, his realization was that it locked the actors too much out of that process, that creative process of discovery, by trying to exert that much like precision and engineering control over a project that he backed off on that. He said he regretted I guess it put off Forrest Whitaker, like, because who was on it for the whole time and playing like the most sympathetic character with the most like
with the most to do in the movie, like the biggest character.
And he said, I don't think Whitaker has ever said anything bad about this production, but it sounds like Fincher, what Fincher recently said. I think there was a sense of like, it just wears them down because it's one location for 5 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe what that is that not that he realized, he doesn't really want that level of control, but that level of control doesn't necessarily produce. It's not a cure-all for everything that had plagued his earlier productions, like Alien 3. You can blame all that on the studio, and now realizing that, well, maybe there needs to be some sort of middle ground there between I have everything exactly the way I want it, and I'm totally at the mercy of the studio.
Well, Zodiac's next, and that is nothing if not a very controlled film.
Indeed.
Maybe he takes the lessons he needed to from this for that one, which also has a lot more of a pulse, I would say. There's a lot more magic in Zodiac, I guess. Yep. A lot more razzle dazzle to it.
It is considered by many cineasts as one of the best films of the century, and a lot of film critics would say it's his best film overall. So,
yeah, I think I'd agree with that personally. I think that one, like every time I watch it, like I love it more and more.
Well, we'll find out next time.
Yeah, I've discovered in watching these so far that my original opinion from the 90s has more or less been confirmed in every case. So I'm wondering if I'm going to find one where I'm going to change up in some way, positive or negative, and it hasn't happened yet. I don't know what that means exactly, but
maybe we'll find out you were very wise in the 90s and very, very dumb in the 2000s.
Maybe I'll come back saying, guys, Benjamin Button, actually great. It's so good. It totally worked. I was crying.
Better than Zodiac. That'll be our log line.
All
right. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. See you guys. Thank you, Joon, and we'll have you back shortly to talk about.
Thank you both. I'm going to regret this.
Yes. All right.